Welcome aboard Tristan and Tommy's Runaway Railway. For your safety, please remain seated and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Please Remain Seated, a theme park podcast hosted by two theme park enthusiasts that work for the industry in Central Florida. In our show, we discuss theme park news, theme park rides and reviews, our Passholder Karen of the week, and this week we're going to have a little Disney history lesson as well. Our news this week will be COVID restrictions coming back to the parks, Six Flags Fiesta Texas announcement that they made earlier this week, Universal's Horror Nights updates, and the Galactic Starcruiser update over at Disney World near Hollywood Studios. And also today's review is going to be the theme park Six Flags over Georgia. Tristan, how are we doing? Do we have anything we got to say before we just jump right into it? Last week was our first episode. We kind of did an introduction to us and why we're doing the show. Anything we need to say before we jump right into the news this week?
Episode 2, baby. Here we are.
Episode 2, fantastic. Yeah, let's jump into it. So on our first episode, when we recorded it, there was a lot of COVID restrictions being rolled back, but a lot of them, like masks not being required at all. But in accordance with CDC new guidelines, with more COVID cases starting to be on the rise with the Delta variant, Walt Disney World is now requiring masks on indoors again. Only indoors, on attractions and transportation. You can still walk around outside on Disney property without your mask, but they are now required indoors, attractions, and transportation. As of right now, I don't think Universal has updated it, neither has SeaWorld or any other theme parks that I know of at this moment of recording. We're currently recording this on August 1st. Whenever we upload it, whenever we'll upload it, but this is the news at the time. And Tristan, what are your thoughts on the rules kind of starting to become strict again?
Although I'm very happy that the rules are getting stricter, and I am surprised too. And listeners will remember on the last episode, I actually said I don't think Disney or any of the theme park things are going to go back on their rules. And they did. They went back and they actually required masks again for these specific instances, and I'm glad for that. Cases are crazy. We can speak for being in Central Florida. Cases are worse in Florida now than they have ever been. That is kind of shocking.
Yeah, and I totally feel awkward because I think on the first episode I said something like, yeah, with vaccines and cases going down, everything's looking good. And now that's not quite the case.
It's not. And I
think the Delta variant is actually kind of strong against certain vaccines still. I'm pretty sure you have a better chance, obviously, but we're still getting an increase of infections. So good on Disney for enforcing the masks. Got a feel for the cast members though, because going from having to enforce masks, which can be rough sometimes, to not having to do it, which is a breath of fresh air, no pun intended, I guess, to having to go back to do it again must be, oh darn, yikes. It's good that Disney is starting to take it more seriously than some of these other places in Central Florida, and I think in general, even when everywhere was really strict, Disney was doing the best job.
Yeah, they were. And there was a time where I definitely thought, if you're going to go somewhere, go to Disney, because they are handling this the best way possible. They had so many rules and regulations in place. So that was definitely
the cast members were doing a really good job of enforcing it.
Yes.
I remember going to Universal when Universal first opened, they were good. Universal did feel safe for the first few months. Then there was a turning point in October when it started to get busier and people were walking around with masks down, drinking, and not distancing in the lines when distancing was being enforced. Disney was the only park that was doing a good job of enforcing distancing and masks.
Yeah, they were really on it. I still do have to say that even though they were great at that time, now that cases are worse than they've really ever been, and we're obviously not as strict in Central Florida as all the places around here have been. I do think that I don't want to go so far as to say everything should close again, but I think
Yeah.
we need to crack down again because it's out of hand at this point. Speaking of tourism in general, I've been seeing headlines about like don't travel to Vegas, because it's
Hmm.
just you don't want to get sick. Vegas is a tourist hotspot, and I went and looked at Nevada's cases, and last I checked, they're getting about 1,000 to 2,000 new cases a day, which is
Wow.
bad. The problem's not gone.
Hmm.
But Florida got like 20 something thousand the other day.
Jeez.
And
I
according to Google, we had 38,000 the other day.
Oh my God.
So,
I got to be honest, I haven't been looking at numbers again recently just because I hate admitting it. I'm just like, I don't want to look at them. I've heard that they've gotten bad, and I'm just like, nope. I'm just gonna let things rock for now. I think a lot of the major outbreaks have come from people being in enclosed gatherings. I think that might be true, which is why masks are being required indoors.
yeah, that's definitely it too. All the facts I've seen is that you're probably pretty good outside without wearing them when you're outside.
Yeah,
So maybe that was overkill, last year or earlier this year when
yeah,
everyone
maybe.
was like cracking down on walking around
Yeah,
outside.
yeah,
I err on the side of safety, so I
yeah.
really
Me
didn't.
too.
So, but yeah, it's at least we're wearing them inside. So
Yeah, so that's good. Maybe things will look better, and hopefully we end up good out of that. Um, should we move on to the next news topic?
go for it, my guy.
Next one that I'm going to talk about won't isn't a Central Florida-based announcement. It's actually Six Flags Fiesta Texas. Back in June, they had a big spooky steampunk themed parade teasing something big for 2022. Like they went all out with the theming and big parade and had a bunch of teasers for the months, had a hotline that you can call that was giving hints at what they were going to announce. And a few days ago, they announced what they are bringing in 2022. And that's going to be Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger, which is going to be a new B&M dive coaster. It's going to be the steepest dive coaster in the world. For those who aren't familiar what a B&M dive coaster is, if you are familiar with Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, SheiKra at Busch Gardens Tampa, Valraven at Cedar Point, the coaster trains usually feature 3 rows that can seat a lot of people, and it typically will have a big chain lift, and then before a big vertical drop, it will hang you facing down the steep drop before it drops you for at least a few seconds. So it creates an extra thrill in that regard. They're really, really fun coasters. I've only been on Griffin. It's been a long time, but I know a lot of people who have been on them. They really enjoy them. Now, this one that they're adding at Fiesta Texas isn't as tall as some of the ones that we're familiar with, like Griffin and SheiKra, that are 200 plus feet tall. This one's only going to be 150 feet tall. It has a much smaller layout, but it is going to be it has a 95-degree drop, so not a 90-degree vertical. It's beyond vertical. It seems to have a pretty fun layout. I went to Fiesta Texas a few months ago, and I think it will be a fun addition to the park. But with how all out they were going with the parade, I was kind of hoping that they would do something that seems like a must visit. Like it does have the steepest drop of any dive coaster, but looking at the layout, it doesn't seem like, oh my God, I have to go there. Like here in Florida, I can just go ride SheiKra, and I think that might be a better ride. That drop at the beginning does look like it will be cool, and it'll probably be a fun ride. Maybe if there's good theming elements on it. Um, but it'll definitely be a good addition to the park, and Fiesta Texas is a fun park, so good for them for adding that.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Tristan, yeah, Tristan's
I'm
anyways,
speechless.
Tristan's speechless.
It's such a
I
cool
geek
thing.
out too much in theme parks, but we're gonna go back to our Central Florida news. Universal Halloween Horror Nights. Tristan, what have you been hearing about Horror Nights?
I just saw on the interwebs that they are already setting it up. They're already putting things out like the risers, the
Oh yeah.
scaffoldings. Like they're starting to build horror nights already for this year. And it's they started build. It's August 1st at the time of this recording,
Hmm.
and it was late July when they started building it.
Yep. And I believe as of right now, the houses that are confirmed, they confirmed Beetlejuice. Jack is back. One of the original Halloween Horror Nights original characters is going to be back with a nice house. Did I don't know if it was officially confirmed, but I know that the Tooth Fairy is going to come back. They had a little house for that last year, and that's going to be back.
I heard there was going to be a Haunting of Hill House.
Haunting of the Hill House?
Yeah, which was a Netflix show from a couple years ago that was really, really good. I believe I heard that there's going to be one for that too.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see Halloween Horror Nights come back. It couldn't come back fully last year for obvious reasons. They did do 2 different houses that had distancing and rules into effect. So it wasn't traditional Horror Nights house where you just walk through with a bunch of people. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out this year. But I've only done 2 Horror Nights in my life. I only did 2018, and I only did the Stranger Things house that year. The first Stranger Things house they ever did was really good. The next year in 2019, I didn't like the Stranger Things house as much the second time around. Like the first year they only did season 1, the second year they combined seasons 2 and 3, and there were really cool parts of it, but I felt like the theming overall wasn't as good. But they did have other really amazing houses in 2019. Like for the movie Us, I loved Us, and the house for it was absolutely incredible. And then just the vibe of Horror Nights is really cool, so I'm really looking forward to that coming back.
I've never been.
You've never been? Definitely
I've
check it
never
out.
been.
It's a good
I've
time.
got,
My
hopefully,
roommate's
hopefully I
girlfriend is
will.
actually going to be in Horror Nights, so that should be pretty cool. I'm definitely going to be
Ooh,
supporting her.
very nice.
And then our final news update will be the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser. Is that what it's called?
That is what it's called. Officially, the name of the ship that the Star Cruiser is based around is called the Halcyon, I think. Halcyon?
Halcyon.
Halcyon. And we just got the news that the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser will be opening in spring of 2022.
Really good
So
to hear.
pretty exciting. For those who don't know, it's going to be I think it's a 2-night immersive
2 night.
experience where you don't leave. You're on it for basically that whole time. At one point, you will go to Batuu or Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios. But that's really all the details we have. Is it's going to be that 2 nights, spring 2022. They did say there's going to be some sort of a lightsaber training experience,
Ooh,
some
that's gonna
unique
be really cool.
dining. Yes. And then your room, instead of a window, you look out into space. So
That's really
that's going to
cool.
be pretty cool. It's going to look like you're flying through space when you're in your room.
Yeah, and I would imagine for how much you got to pay for that experience, it will be very immersive. So I'm looking forward to the reviews for when that comes out.
I bet it's going to be amazing, and it's definitely going to be expensive because the capacity of the hotel is actually very low. It's a very
Yeah,
small building. So, since there's not going to be a lot of rooms, I think the price point is going to be pretty high, but it's still going to be very cool.
yeah, very very cool, especially for any Star Wars fans. You can swing it, definitely try that once that opens. Now, you mentioned, I actually didn't realize this, that it's going to be like you're kind of on the cruise for 2 days until you're able to go into Batuu at some point. Now, would a guest be able to just sneak off and park hop from Hollywood Studios since they're going to be exiting into the park? Is that how
I
that could work?
mean, I believe you could. I don't see why, if you were to leave Batuu and go into Hollywood Studios, why you wouldn't be able to get on a bus and go somewhere else, right? But the
Yeah,
problem is you'd have to find a way to get back. And
which you
if you're
just have to
park
get into the
hopping,
park, I guess, before it closes if you
you
were to sneak
yeah,
off.
as far as I know, you'd have to get back to Hollywood Studios before the park closes. But I don't know what the transportation is going to be like from when you leave Batuu to go back to the Star Cruiser,
Interesting.
or if there's a time slot that you need to make it back by,
Mm.
and I doubt that if you park hop and go to a different park to close, that you'll
Oh
be
yeah.
able to take a bus. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah, I
probably
know
won't
what
be
you're
able to take a
saying. So,
bus.
like, you probably wouldn't be able to watch the fireworks at Epcot, then make your way back to Hollywood Studios. That would not work.
Probably not. I can't
That's
imagine.
that'll be interesting to see what that's going to be like. I'm sure it is going to be an incredible experience for those who get to do it. So,
I think people are just gonna have to understand that, like, if you book the Star Cruiser, you are limited to that for the
Yeah.
most part. It's going to be really complicated if you try to introduce park hopping while staying on the Starcruiser.
10-4. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I guess we'll be moving into our theme park review of the week. On our first episode, I reviewed a ride. This week, I'm going to be reviewing a theme park. That's going to be Six Flags over Georgia. I'm going to give you some pros and cons of the park and whether or not I think you should try to give it a visit. So for the pros for this park, they had some really, really fun roller coasters there. Definitely all about the roller coasters here. My favorite one in the park was probably Goliath, which at Six Flags over Georgia was a B&M hyper coaster. For those who aren't sure what a B&M hyper coaster is, they're very big, tall, and smooth. Hyper coasters are 200 feet or taller, and B&M is known for really good ones. Popular ones include Mako at SeaWorld Orlando, Apollo's Cherry at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Diamondback's Kings Island, and one of my favorites, Intimidator at Carowinds. A really, really fun ride, incredible airtime in the back row. They also had a really nice RMC hybrid with Twisted Cyclone. Had a really, really fun layout, had really cool inversions. They had one that I had never experienced. It was like kind of like a barrel roll while you're going down a hill. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was really cool. The only other RMC hybrid I did was Iron Rattler at Fiesta Texas, and that one was really fun. I had a hard time deciding which one I liked better. I think I went with Iron Rattler just because it was bigger and faster, but I loved the layout in Twisted Cyclone. They also had a really fun Gerstlauer coaster, Daredevil Dive with a Beyond vertical drop with fun inversions, and a few other really fun roller coasters there. One of my favorite rides there was actually not a roller coaster. It was a little slow-moving boat ride called Monster Mansion. It starts off outside, then it goes inside. It's almost like a Disney dark ride, and I was genuinely surprised at how good the animatronics were. But it was also just really weird. It started off cute, and then it got really creepy at the end. And honestly, one of the most memorable things about the park for me was the slow-moving boat ride in a park full of really big roller coasters. The cons of this park that I'm going to go on to are that as someone coming from the Florida parks, there really isn't a lot of photogenic areas of the park. Like, there's not really places to take nice pictures. It's not a really aesthetically pleasing park. Like, the entrance coming in is pretty nice, but there's not really a lot of nice places to take pictures. Like Twisted Cyclone, there's not really a good area to take a picture of the coaster other than from outside the park where it's just in front of a barbed wire fence. Not a lot of really good theming in the park outside of Monster Mansion, as far as I can tell. And then the other con that I'm going to give for Six Flags Over Georgia is that there's nothing about Six Flags Over Georgia that's like you can only find this here. Like Goliath is one of my favorite roller coasters, but you can find B&M hypers at better parks. Twisted Cyclone, you can find RMC hybrids at better parks. Monster Mansion is honestly the one thing that I'm like, this is unique and that I would recommend you going to. With that being said, for my coaster enthusiasts that are on the East Coast in the Southeast region, it's definitely worth a trip going to. Like, if you're in the Southeast region and you're pretty close to Atlanta, Georgia, it's a nice little trip to go to. Like, I had a 3-day trip when I went. I drove up one day, I had a day in the park, and then before I drove back down to Central Florida, I hit up the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta, and it was a nice little 3-day trip. So if you're able to do a quick little weekend trip, it's definitely worth the visit. If you don't live near Atlanta, Georgia, I wouldn't say it's worth coming all the way from California to visit unless you are a hardcore theme park enthusiast and you're just trying to do something a little bit different. But with that being said, I had a really fun time there and I recommend you going. So those are my thoughts on Six Flags over Georgia.
Well, I've never been,
Yeah.
as applies to most of the things we've talked about on the show. However, I do say if you do live around you said the Southeast region,
Yeah,
and
so
you go,
like, if you can drive to Atlanta, Georgia comfortably for a weekend.
yeah.
I will say I did go on a weekday. So my days off were in the middle of the week, and I also got a 3-day weekend, and I went on a Wednesday in June.
Mm.
So it really was not that busy. I don't think I waited more than 15 to 30 minutes for any rides. I think my longest wait times that I feel like I had were for Daredevil Dive, which was that really fun Gerstlauer coaster. Just the loading capacity was not the best. And Monster Mansion, kind of the loading for that was a little bit slow, but everything else was relatively fine. The park itself, wasn't like as nice as a Disney park, but it was very fun to go to as a coaster enthusiast for sure.
All right. Well, on a food note, if you go on any day that's not Sunday, what, Tommy?
Sorry, I just remembered one other con I was gonna give. Probably the food. I mean, you can find decent food there, but I feel like there's a saying theme park food, and I feel like that's pretty much every theme park outside of Disney and maybe Universal. Um, or even I've heard Dollywood and Silver Dollar City have good food, but there wasn't any food that blew me away. But I feel like you go to Six Flags for roller coasters, and that's pretty much it. Um,
Well,
but
this ties
anyways,
into what I want to say because if you're in the Atlanta area, there is a Hawaiian Chick-fil-A
ooh,
in Atlanta. So if you don't want to eat Six Flags food, go to the Hawaiian Chick-fil-A. It's the only Hawaiian Chick-fil-A in
nice.
the world. And they have all
That's
sorts of
really
unique menu
interesting.
items. Yeah.
I was gonna say a food place outside of Six Flags near Atlanta, Georgia, is a little place called the Slutty Vegan, and it serves pretty much greasy burgers, but it's all vegan. And some of the names for his stuff are inappropriate, and they get they have a little bit of fun there. That's probably slightly not. I'm trying to be a safer work show here, but the people that work there have fun, and it's not too out of reach. I don't think it would make too many people uncomfortable. But if you have anybody with certain food allergies or eat vegan, it's a really delicious place and a really fun place to visit if you're in the Atlanta area. The Slutty Vegan.
Very nice.
All right, so we're gonna move on to our pass holder Karen of the week. Tristan, did you have one pulled up?
I do. I got one right here.
All right.
Found this one
So, for
online.
those who have ever participated in a pass holder group for any theme parks, you get a lot of fun Karens that complain about very mundane things or anything else. So, on our podcast, we want to shame at least one a week, and I believe Tristan, you got a fun one.
Yep, we're gonna Karen shame today.
Yep.
So here goes. America, be careful what you wish for. Disney has become far left, racist, and fascist. They have Nazi police patrolling their parks as soon as your child removes their mark, they mean mask. They yell at you and threaten to throw you out at 150 a pop on tickets. And the parks are all under construction. Don't waste your money or time. And they are still in Democratic COVID policy while the rest of
Oh my
Florida
God.
isn't. Keep in mind, this was before we just introduced all these new or reintroduced these mask policies. Tells you how democratic they are. 75% of the rides are closed, but they don't tell you that. Even on TV, it's all false advertising. They suck you in to spend your money with no refunds for the parks at only 59% captivity. But 59%. Where'd you get that
Jeez.
number?
Yeah, literally.
What?
They haven't even released any numbers about their capacity, so I don't know where that
No.
came from.
No one knows what the capacity is. It's not 59%.
Oh man.
But no one says anything. And yes, Disney says, we're so sorry for your trip, but just think of what coming in the future. Yeah, well, what about now and my refund for PISD, poor service and closed rides, horrible food, and racist service? I spent over $700 to get in your fascist employee park. Never again, your two faces left-wing Democratic losers.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
That's that oh god.
It's
I
a
don't
bit
even know where to
much.
begin with this one. So first of all, Disney definitely is, you know, good. I was gonna say they're open about what is open and what is closed, and I'm pretty sure most of their stuff is open in terms of attractions. Like, definitely all the ones that you're going to Disney for are open. A few shows still haven't fully come back. Second, the whole like, I just can't take anyone seriously when they're like, "Oh, you Democrats with your masks." Like, what's that supposed to mean? Like, God, I'm having a hard time vocalizing. It's
It's
just
a
so
simple
I'm just
safety
over it at this
protocol.
point, I think.
Oh, I'm burnt out on it too.
Like, I'm so over it. If the rules are wear a mask, you wear a mask. That's how it is. Uh,
No, but you have to understand that people's conveniences have to come first.
yeah, I'm just wondering where the fascist and racist thing came from too. Are they just because Like they're fascist and racist because they're trying to be safe during a pandemic that's killed over 600,000 Americans, or
All
I
of the
don't.
specific points in this person's post is that rides, we don't have all the rides or all the experiences back at Florida
Yeah.
at Disney, that they don't uh, that they're very strict on the rules, on the mask rules, and that they spent a lot of money to be there. So I don't know where racism or fascism comes in to any
Yeah,
of that.
they're just being also, when was the do you know when that was posted?
No, I don't.
Okay. Because I can say as of right now, in July the fireworks have returned at Epcot and Magic Kingdom at least.
Yeah.
And but I mean, I'm pretty sure all major rides have been open and everything. Disney advertises their stuff, and before you come, they give you all the COVID warnings. They remind you several times. The app sends you notifications, COVID-19. They tell you before you go. They're very good at communicating that. Like, you need to make a park reservation before coming in, which was never the case before 2020.
Yeah.
So they didn't plan correctly, and they decided to blurt out a bunch of baloney.
Yes, they did baloney. It's a good word.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so that was this Karen of the week, and boy, oh boy, was it a doozy.
That was a doozy. I'm gonna need a few ibuprofen after that.
For sure, for sure.
Let's go to a fun history lesson. Let's bring some lightness into the Disney right now.
Absolutely. Well, let me I want to do a quick name change to this segment. And this is clever, all right? Listen to this.
Okay.
I want it to be called Theme Park TRISTory.
I love it.
Right? It's my name,
Theme
Tristan.
Park TRISTory.
Theme Park TRISTory.
Because Tristan has some good theme park history lessons.
I does.
So let's combine Tristan and history. This is why I have the most smartest, handsome podcast host.
Well, I don't know about that. Okay, yes, I do. You're right.
Yeah. TRISTory.
TRISTory.
What's our TRISTory lesson today?
So today we're going to talk about extinct Disneyland attractions from Walt's era, but specifically we're going to zoom all the way into July of 1955, which is the month Disneyland opened.
Ooh.
So before we begin, I want to just mention that Fantasyland is very much the same as it was back then. So we're actually going to focus on the other lands starting on Main Street. So the horse-drawn fire wagon was present on Disneyland's opening day, and it was used for 5 years before being put on permanent display in 1960. Disneyland also had a horse-drawn surrey that was used from opening day until 1971. Tomorrowland had a boat ride called the Tomorrowland Boats, which was quickly renamed Phantom Boats, where guests had free range to drive the boats around a lagoon in Tomorrowland. This became the first Disneyland attraction to become extinct, as it only lasted about a year before closing. Tomorrowland also had the Rocket to the Moon attraction, which opened 5 days after Disneyland did, renamed Flight to the Moon in 1967, and again Mission to Mars in 1975. The attraction experience changed with each renaming until finally closing for good in 1992. Frontierland opened with the Davy Crockett Frontier Museum, with an exhibit on the Alamo, Davy Crockett memorabilia, and wax figures of Fess Parker and Buddy Ebsen as Davy Crockett and George Russell, respectively. After 3 months, the museum was turned into the Davy Crockett Frontier Arcade, which lasted until 1987. Adventureland had a very interesting attraction, one that still stands today off Disney property. The Magnolia Park Bandstand was originally to be placed in the middle of Town Square, and was actually placed there before opening, but was moved to the Castle Hub for a short time until being moved to an area of Adventureland called Magnolia Park in 1956. That area was closed in 1962 for a Jungle Cruise expansion, but the structure of the bandstand still stands today in the city of Anaheim, California.
Wow.
And that's it.
That's awesome. Yeah, really interesting to hear about old attractions that used to be at Disneyland. And then I also like hearing about how Fantasyland is pretty much the same.
Yes, it's, and I noticed that when I was there, about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I was about 2 years ago too.
you walk through Fantasyland and it just feels like, I mean, I wasn't there in the 50s or 60s, so I have no idea, but it feels
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is old. This is just how Walt had it. And it is, because you're in that little sort of like a courtyard. You see the castle, and then you have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, Snow White's Scary Adventures.
I do think they changed Scary Adventures since COVID, though, right? Like during when Disneyland was shut down for over a year, they changed it to it's no longer Scary Adventures.
Yes,
It's just
correct.
like Snow White.
Something like
It's
that.
not scary. I know that though.
I don't even remember, but
off the top of my head.
I mean, even then, from the outside, it still looks
Yeah.
very, very much similar to that. The most interesting part of that little lesson to me actually was that bandstand that I talked about. It was just a little gazebo looking thing. And there's actually a time lapse you can find on YouTube of Town Square being built in Disneyland. And very briefly in the time lapse, you see them put this gazebo type structure right in the middle of Town Square. And then it disappears. And like I said, at one point it went to the hub area right in front of the castle, and then it was moved to Adventureland, and it was taken out by 1956.
Wow.
Like about a year later, it was already gone, but it's in the city of Anaheim still.
Very, very cool.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Thank you for that TRISTory lesson about Disneyland.
You are welcome.
We might have more. If anybody has any other historical Disney topics you would like us to discuss, let us know on our social medias or however you're able to contact us.
All right. Let's wrap her up, huh?
All right, wrap her up. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to our first 2 episodes of Please Remain Seated. If you have, like I said, if you have any history lessons you want us to talk about, let us know. Also, if you have any theme parks or rides you would like us to review, please let us know. We would like to hear from you guys what else you want us to talk about in terms of news, maybe topics, anything like that. We're open to suggestions. We love theme parks, and we want to talk about them with you guys. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. All right. I think I should be just about all set.
All right. We ready to get to it?
We are.
All right.
I'll do a countdown here.
All right.
Recording in 3, 2, 1.
This meeting is being recorded.